deal. You're going to hang out with us longer. Wait, can people hear us? Oh, wait, you can't see my scholar.
Hello and welcome everyone to this evening's session on building community in Divinity School, student life at VDS. My name is Laura Martico-Heifetz, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions, Vocation, and Stewardship at Vanderbilt Divinity School. Our panel format is the following. I will introduce our panelists and ask them to share a little bit about themselves. They will respond to a series of questions. Please feel free to use the chat function in YouTube Live to share reactions or ask questions of the panelists. My colleague John, who is an MDiv student at VDS, will be the chat moderator for this evening. Before we welcome our panelists, I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. The Office of Admissions, Vocation, and Stewardship joins the Vanderbilt student government in collectively acknowledging that Vanderbilt University occupies the ancestral hunting and traditional lands of the Cherokee, Shawnee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Creek peoples. Today, these people have nation boundaries in Oklahoma, North Carolina, and Mississippi, after the Indian Removal Act of 1830 led to the forced removal of Southern tribes to the west of the Mississippi River. In particular, Vanderbilt University resides on land ceded in the Treaty of Hopewell. We recognize and support the Indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those forcibly removed from their homelands. We also recognize the resistance, strength, and pride of other people of color whose ancestors worked, lived, and bled on this land without benefit or due compensation. We stand as accomplices alongside you in the fight for equity. I am delighted to welcome three special guests joining us today and all of you joining us on YouTube Live. The first is Ristina Gooden, who is the president of the Student Government Association, a second-year MDiv student. And she will tell more about herself to all of you. Iman Ali, first-year representative to SGA, is an MTS student from Eastern Kentucky. And Lindsey Longoria, community co-chair for the SGA, a second-year MDiv student. So tonight we will hear from them what it's like to be a student at VDS, how do students build community during non-pandemic times and during pandemic times, and about all the ways student life is integral to the VDS education. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, hello.
So Ristina, I'm wondering if you would start us off. Tell us briefly a little bit about you, your current work or ministry, what years you entered VDS, and anything else you think we should know.
Oh, wait now. We don't have that kind of time. Well, hello, everyone. I am Ristina Gooden, she, her pronouns, a second-year MDiv student concentrating in religion, gender, and sexuality, Black church studies, and pastoral and prophetic leadership. We decided we would take all of them. I entered in 2019. What year is it anymore? In 2019, and I currently serve as the SGA President, which has been an absolute pleasure. I'm also working as a logistics coordinator for Faith Matters Network, which is a womanist organization working to heal the healers and support our spiritual leaders, organizers, and activists. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And Iman, wondering if you would go next.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, y'all. Good morning, depending on where you are, I guess. My name is Iman Ali, and as Dean Heifetz said, I am from Eastern Kentucky. So was a UK undergrad, so go Cats, but I'm a big Vols fan now. My involvement with student government is that I am the first year representative. And so a lot of my work really revolves on making sure, especially in a time of pandemic, that our cohort feels as close as possible. We'll kind of get more to the nitty-gritty of my responsibilities, but I'm the new kid on the block when it comes to SGA, and I can't tell you how every single person on this panel has absolutely made my journey just the best that it could be at VDS. So we'll get to the nitty gritty of it. I think I'm the chattiest of the bunch, so I'll keep my intro short so we can keep the conversation going.
Thank you. And Lindsey.
Hi, my name is Lindsey Longoria. I'm also a second-year MDiv student at Vanderbilt. I started the same time as Ristina, which feels like 1,000 years ago at this point. And My concentration is in spirituality and social activism. My field ed placement, which I actually started working at my first year at the Divinity School, is Belmont Wesley Fellowship, which is the United Methodist Student Ministry at Belmont University, where I serve alongside Reverend David Hollis. And also part of my field ed placement there is just beginning the ordination process to be ordained as a deacon within that tradition. Oh, and I serve as the SGA community co-chair. That is an important thing, alongside Perrin Bailey, who is my other co-chair. So we, along with the rest of SGA, do a lot of event planning, things like that to build community amongst VDS students. And we'll talk more about that later.
Great, thank you. So our first question is for, or the next question is for Ristina. What does student life mean, and what is SGA? What does it do? What do you all do?
Listen, what day is it? That depends what we do. So student life is everything that happens outside of the classroom. It is how are you engaged with your cohort mates, with the greater school, and with the greater university. It's about how are you taking what you've learned in the classroom and then applying it to your everyday life. It's really digging into what ministry could look like based on these skills. It's a lot of community building. We do that quite a bit. Even when we weren't SGA people, we did a lot of community building. So student life is really about hanging out with your people, figuring out who your people are, what your passions are outside of the classroom. So that is really the beauty of student life. And what does SGA do? So the Student Government Association of Vanderbilt Divinity School is really focused on making sure that the students are having the best experience possible. So whether that is having academic conversations, talking to the dean, or just planning events so that we can build community that way. Being in Divinity School is very much about being in community with each other. And so SGA really takes that seriously, and how can we make sure that you are having the best experience possible in every way, shape, and form.
Thank you. So you all told us a little bit about your positions on SGA, but I'm wondering, how are each of you involved in student life at VDS? What does that look like for you? And popcorn style, who wants to go first?
I vote for Iman.
This is part of the new kid on the block initiation. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so I think for one of the things that I'll say is when I was leaving undergrad or even my previous graduate school, I was the kind of person that when an opportunity kind of rang, I didn't just volunteer with one hand, I volunteered with both. Like I wanted to be involved in everything. And sometimes, you come across situations where it seems like, there's not enough clubs or there's not enough kind of opportunities. VDS is so unique in this way that you'll be, leaving class, and I haven't even stepped foot on campus yet. I've been in a virtual setting, but you might have a moment with a fellow cohort member and say, you know what, I really liked that reading. Like, let's have a book club. I really liked, I really like Pictionary. Let's just play Pictionary on Saturday. There is so much opportunity for these, I think not technically like school designated opportunities, but just like self-enrichment with your cohort that I find to be really, really great. But one of the other things is that Vanderbilt does not fall short in any kind of academic enrichment either. When you come to the Divinity School, you come with a purpose, you come with a reason, your why, right? And VDS is really there to help you solidify, if not reach that point of what it is that you want to do. So whether it's fellowships, and I could go on about all day about all the fellowship opportunities. I could talk to you about the wonderful professors that we have. I could talk to you about the cohort members that you'll have. Lean in on every single one of these, because whether you're here for a year, 3 years, 7 years, I can tell you it's never going to be enough time because there's so much to do. And yeah, it's just the best experience. I can't talk enough about it, for sure.
Who wants to go next?
Lindsey.
All right.
All right. I'm going for it.
Perks of being president.
Yeah, so my experience coming into Vanderbilt was a little bit different than some other students in my cohort because I already lived in Nashville. So I had been living and working in Nashville for about 4 years when I started at the Divinity School. And so my community building and like finding my people had already started. But the thing that I really appreciate in life is building community with lots of different people. And I'm a huge extrovert, very fed by that. And Vanderbilt is a really good place to be an extrovert because there are a lot of people coming in from all different walks of life. And it was really, really incredible right off the bat to get to know every single person in my cohort. And we say all the time that our cohort might be closer than most, and I think that was evident from the time that we were in orientation. And I remember thinking back to my very first week at Vanderbilt, I had an opportunity to go on a financial planning retreat with a handful of other students and just talk about what life could look like and what planning your future looks like at Vanderbilt. And just spending that weekend with that handful of other students was so enriching. And I remember walking up to our friend Michael, who is in our cohort, and being like, cool, so we're going to be friends and we're going on this pontooning trip next week. And he was like, okay. And that seems to be kind of the nature of a Vanderbilt Divinity School. Is we, when before the pandemic, it was one weekend we were at Lipstick Lounge doing karaoke. The next weekend we were at the Divinity School at the winter ball. There's all sorts of different opportunities to get involved there. And of course, that's looked a little bit different in the past year, but we've still found ways to connect virtually and in social distance ways. And that's been really special as well.
Thank you.
Ristina.
Yeah, building off of what Lindsey said, our cohort definitely came in as probably the tightest cohort and still somehow remains the tightest cohort. We are always showing up for each other and wanting to hang out with each other, even in virtual spaces. But yeah, so we came in, and I am a second career student. So I was an event planner for about 7 years before coming into Divinity School. So I'm a little bit older than some of the folks that were coming in. So I was very unclear how this was going to work. I was unclear how I was going to get back into the groove of things. But one thing I was not worried about was building community. We got here, we got to orientation, and we were instantly obsessed with one another. I immediately took on the role of planning study sessions and creating Google Docs for our Hebrew Bible and New Testament classes, just so that we could all be in community with each other and support each other through this first year of Divinity School. The first year, I will always say, is the toughest year just to get adjusted to. So it was really special to have that. It's easy to pick up the phone and text or call someone in our cohort if you have a question, and they are very quick to respond. If you ever need an eating buddy, we have plenty of those. And then we're also able to go out and dance and sing karaoke. That is one thing about Divinity School at VDS. We love to have a good time. We love to be out and about and sing and dance, even if we can't do either one of those things. So it's been really special. I also got to be involved with the Black seminarians. So being able to be with folks that look like me and were in school with me and doing this work and figuring out that path has been real special.
Thank you. And I'm wondering if any of you wants to share a bit about being involved in student life at the bigger VU at Vanderbilt University. If anyone has anything to contribute.
So I can kind of start. I've joined Vanderbilt Divinity School from an all virtual setting. I mentioned this earlier, but I actually really haven't stepped foot on campus yet. I'm so excited to, because I've heard it's just absolutely so beautiful. And there's a Trader Joe's nearby. So I'm super excited. But the thing is that, my interactions with a lot of Vanderbilt University came from two main ways. One was there are courses that you can take that you might be in classes with undergraduate students. Oftentimes, many of these individuals will ask me about my life trajectory up to this point. You know, people who are interested in master's programs, people who are interested in the Divinity School, they'll schedule time to chat, and you really get to engage with individuals, learn how their life is going. Sometimes I like to do just a checkup on Vanderbilt University as a whole, make sure that, you know, vibe check, is everything okay? And you really get to know that by the students in your class. You know, they don't hold back. And the second is, you know, I mentioned this earlier, but I was the first year that came in with both hands raised. I wanted to get involved. And so a lot of my conversations with Dean Heifetz and Dean Steele, whom I hope you get to meet soon, were absolutely wonderful. I told them, if you need me, you call me, beat me if you want to reach me, kind of. You know, I'm welcome to do any kind of thing. And Dean Steele really helped me out by helping appoint me to the Appellate Review Board, which is with Vanderbilt University as a whole, which kind of goes into the more SGA judicial kind of side of things. She knew that I was interested in law school as well. So opportunities are there. If you want to get involved, don't consider yourself like a satellite campus simply because you're a Divinity School student or a medical school student or anything. We are a big family. You have your immediate family with the Divinity School, but there are tons of opportunities, even virtually, for you to get involved with the larger VU.
Yeah, I think Iman is way more involved than I am. And so she definitely said a lot more than I can to the larger Vanderbilt University. But I will say, if you are a sports fan, Vanderbilt has some fun sporting events you can attend, but they also have fun like co-ed sports, which I have really enjoyed. So I was on the VDS flag football team my first year, as well as the softball team for all one of our practices before the university had to shut down in the spring. But there's just lots of opportunities to just be on a team and be, at least in my opinion, or in my place, bad at the sport that you're playing, and just have fun with each other. And yeah, so that was really important. Another thing that was really important for me personally, which isn't necessarily student life, but it is a thing that for me was important to know about Vanderbilt, is that I'm a person who lives with an autoimmune disease. And so being at a university that has a really strong medical program and being able to have the support to get the treatment that I needed through Vanderbilt was huge. And that was a big learning curve, but through that learning curve, I got connected to different student organizations that represent students on campus who are working through insurance issues or like medical concerns. And Dean Towns and Dr. Bird at the Divinity School were instrumental in helping me find those connections as well.
These two are way more involved than I have ever even thought about being. So I can't really speak to much more than that. I know that I am in a group chat with the Black graduate students student org. I've never met any of those people, but being in a group chat with folks from all across campus really allows you to learn what's going on and be entertained at the same time without even having to leave your house. So that's all I got.
Thank you. And I am going to switch up our questions a little bit. Don't be too surprised. The next one is, was it difficult or challenging to engage in student life, both pre-pandemic, but also during the pandemic? If you might be willing to share a little bit about that.
I'm happy to kick that off. I would say pre-pandemic, you couldn't catch us on a weekend without, like, we were always with each other. And so we were either at Lipstick Lounge, karaokeing, dancing somewhere in the middle of the streets. We were studying together. We were eating together. There was very rarely a weekend that we were not together, beyond being together every day for class. So pre-pandemic, we were thick as thieves. And even once the pandemic hit, I think that we got close and were involved in very different ways. We were very much about, do you have food? Do you need anything? How can I go grocery shopping for you? There was a lot of community building, a lot of mutual aid going on of how can I make sure that you are alive and well, on top of getting through classes. there was a lot of conversation of how are we going to make it through classes? How can we share notes? How can we just band together and do the best work we can possibly do, knowing that we are in a pandemic and we didn't know what was happening. We were just kind of rolling with the punches. So it went from like a social gathering while we still had social things, but it went from that to how can I make sure that you are alive and well and doing the best you can possibly do, and speak on your behalf whenever we can.
And I'll say this, you know, to add, I haven't known pre-pandemic life with VDS, so I can only speak to the post-current, whatever we want to call this, zombie apocalypse kind of stage. But one thing that I want to, you know, commend all the people on this call with is, you know, my first day of orientation, I was sitting right in the same seat, probably had the same earrings. I'm a pink girl. I love to have everything, you know, and I was nervous. I was like, how am I going to make any friends? How am I going to know where my classes are? And then I'm like, okay, wait, it's on Zoom. I can't get lost, but whatever, you know, and each one of these individuals really calmed my nerves. So, you know, Ristina's talking about they got to bond and they got to go to Lipstick Lounge and all of this stuff. She needs to give herself more credit in the sense that even being in a WhatsApp group with her was welcoming. Me emailing Dean Heifetz about trying to add 13 more credit hours because I wanted to have 4 concentrate. She helped me. Lindsey, I'm always like, hey, can we do this? Can we do this? And she's like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, please. And, you know, like all of these people, I don't have to be next to them for myself to feel welcome. I think that's one of my favorite things about when I think about what the future holds is that already I feel so close to my campus. Already I feel so close to my class that I don't know what it's going to be like when we're actually on campus. We're going to be stuck like glue, I feel like. So hearing about what the past has held and what the future will hold is obviously incredibly exciting. But I will tell you this, that whatever our future holds, even if it is a little bit more virtual life, know that it is incredibly fulfilling. There are great people at VDS in your cohort, maybe a little bit older. Never be hesitant to reach out to these folks because we've all been in your shoes at one point, and we're so eager to help you not make the mistakes that we did or have the fun that we did, but double the fun, you know? So that's just kind of a tidbit there.
Yeah, I mean, to add on, I think one of my favorite things about the community at VDS is that everyone is so consistently willing to show up for one another. And that has been so true for me pre-pandemic and during this pandemic. Speaking just to pandemic times, I think about in the spring when we went online and I had a panic attack because I didn't know how to finish writing this term paper for our New Testament class. And I had a cohort member, actually my community co-chair, help walk me through, like, this is how you ask for an extension, because I'd never had to do that before. Or during the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer, I was constantly seeing people from VDS at protests. We were constantly in communication about holding vigils and holding space for one another and for our Black colleagues going through more of this, right? And and moving into the fall and just learning how to do virtual life together and create study pods online. And there were so many individual moments that I can look to and be like, I would not have made it through without this cohort. The times that I overcommitted to writing to Georgia voters and texted 10 people and almost all of them were like, oh yeah, I can write 10 postcards today, let's do it. Or like when I didn't have internet during a Zoom call and was like, I have no idea what that lecture was about because Zoom kicked me off every 5 minutes. Like there's someone always there to fill me in. And I just think that consistent showing up, both of students at VDS and also of faculty and staff, is just so special, and not a thing that I had seen as consistently in my last graduate program.
This next question is for Iman. If you could talk a little bit about why you came first year and you jumped right in to run for the SGA rep position for your class.
Yeah, so my story about VDS is a little bit interesting. Unlike a lot of my cohort members, I'm not, interested in taking the seminary, pastor, theological kind of route. The reason why I applied to the Divinity School is because I actually want to run for office. And I want to run for office in my home state of Kentucky. And one of the things I realized when it came to how people make decisions, you could sometimes lay all the facts in front of people, and it doesn't hit home as much as something that's traditional, something that we've known our whole lives. And even in this pandemic, we're noticing that it's not necessarily that the president or the chief health minister that people are inclined to listening to. It's their pastor, it's their local doctor, it's people in their community. And I wanted to make sure that I understood my community. Now, I don't know if geographically Kentucky is actually part of the Bible Belt, but I'll say that it is for now, right? I grew up going to church with my friends. I grew up going to or joining, Seder dinners. Like, it was a very common kind of thing for me to be involved in a lot of cultures, even in a place like Eastern Kentucky, where you would think diversity isn't that big of a deal. And so, or not big of a deal, but as available. So for me, coming to Divinity School was ideal because I got to learn some of the best parts about my favorite people, my community, in a way that I could really connect with them. I don't want to be that politician that gets up on stage and is like, vote for me because, you should, because I raise the most money. Because no, I want to connect. I want to make sure that I understand and that my messaging is conveyed in a way that anybody can understand. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a master's. You just have to have the willingness and the open heart to make change, right? So I was really met with that opportunity straight off the bat. I connected with a lot of my deans saying, I don't want VDS to be the last kind of touch I have with Vanderbilt. I would be really interested in applying to law school as well. I can't tell you how much support I've received from all sorts of faculty when it came to this stuff. And I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but I can't stress to each of you enough that if you come in with a seed, you will leave with an oak when it comes to VDS. There is no dream or an ask too big. These individuals, faculty, staff, your peers, are like dream weavers. Things that you think couldn't happen will happen because they believe in you. They sat and read through your admissions portfolio knowing that you were special enough to get in here. And it's not just about, oh, this person is cool in this. No, it's how do we paint this portrait together to make sure that this cohort fits, that we are pumping out these individuals who are truly going to lead in an array of ways. That's one of my favorite things about this. So for me, joining SGA kind of came naturally because I love politics. I wanted to get involved in that way, and I had a ton of ideas. I remember speaking with the vice president, and he was mentioning that there's not anybody running against you, and I still created a whole platform. Like, I had 14 points and all sorts of things that I sent to every single person because I was really passionate about making change, and I knew that it was going to be a little bit harder now that we were in a virtual setting for us to all feel really, really comfortable. And so I was really lucky to be selected for first year rep because it allowed me to make the difference that I wanted to see in VDS, and also allowed me to meet people like Ristina and Lindsey, who have definitely left a legacy already, and they're not even gone yet. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say I have big shoes to fill or whatever, but they're still here, and I'm trying to keep them here for as long as they can. And I'll end with my tangent in this, that seriously, maybe you're not into politics, get involved in SGA anyway. We need people who care. We need people who have ideas. You might think that graduate school is about books and that's it. It's a place to grow. It's a place to expand and jump out of your comfort zone at times. It's 8 o'clock. What time is it? Yeah, 8:30 in the Eastern time zone. Did I think that I was ever going to be on a Zoom call, whatever this duck stream, or I'm not sure what it's called, but talking? No, I didn't. That's kind of out of my comfort zone, But I know that this is too important of a message to not share. Come here with an idea. Let's talk about it. Let's make it happen. This is the place to do it. Seriously, I can't think of anywhere better. And that's not a biased answer.
I'm just going to go ahead and vote for Iman for everything. Anything you do in life, I'm voting for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm voting for you. I'll bring the snacks to the rallies. Don't worry. I got you.
was awesome. Thank you. A question for all of you. How has student life engagement played a role in your vocational discernment, or how you're thinking about what your future looks like?
Lindsay.
It's all you, Ristina.
I came into divinity school very hesitant and very unsure about what I was going to do. I had taken a break from religion and church for 10 years before coming to divinity school. So I was really just like out of it and thought, no way, I'm gonna get into divinity school. And VDS was so kind and thought I should be here. And so I didn't have any idea. I knew that I wanted to focus on millennials who had left the church. And I got here and I realized that millennials, while we have left the church, we have not left our roots. We have not left our desire to be in community with one another and talk about higher powers and how we can make the world a better place. And so every day I say that I have changed my vocation because every day my cohort mates always have some great idea of what they're going to go do. And I say, me too. And so I know that I want to be in community with folks. There are days that I think I'm going to go into pastoral counseling because sometimes I just end up being the therapist for the day. And then there are days that I say, absolutely not. I just want to stand in someone's pulpit and preach a good message of liberation and things like that. And, we'll see what comes of it. I do know that whatever I choose to do, it will be because I was at Vanderbilt Divinity School. It was because I was in class with the most brilliant minds I have ever come across. I will do whatever I end up doing because I have people like Iman and Lindsey who have such great dreams and such great character that have inspired me to be my best self and continue to dig into myself and dismantle any harmful ideas that I had so that I can come up and make sure that I am speaking life and life more abundantly into people. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm here because I want to be at any church that Ristina is leading and live in any state that Iman is leading. Which I know that sounds like a joke, but the longer I spend at VDS and the more incredible human beings I get to know, the more I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did I get to be here? And the thing that I knew coming into Vanderbilt was that I love people and I love their stories. And so that is the thing that I'm constantly seeking and constantly trying to learn to tell my own story and learn to explore how that intersects with those of other people. The other thing I knew coming into Vanderbilt is that community building was going to be a thing that I did for the rest of my life, whether that is a vocational calling or whether that's a personal life decision is kind of a still up in the air exploring thing. And I had touched on that in a lot of different ways, right? And so in the years before Vanderbilt, I had lived with the Jesus people in an intentional community. I had served as a preaching chaplain. I taught special education in middle school for a few years. And all of these different things, they just kept coming back to this idea that community building has to include everyone. And so Vanderbilt Divinity School was one of those places where I could meet more of everyone. And the thing that I've taken away from that and the thing that I'm continuing to live into is that the future of the church or the future of the United States, and my particular passion is how those things intersect, I think has to be a place that is reflective of the people who make up Vanderbilt Divinity School, who make up our communities, who make up our states and our country. And so for me, serving as the community co-chair is a way that I can build events and plan community building activities for all people to flourish and for all people to be seen and included in the work that we're doing here.
Yeah, and just to kind of end on just to end, and not on any kind of note, but for me, my situation is a little unique because in my cohort, I'm actually the only Muslim in my class. And so, for me, not that there were tons of Muslims in Eastern Kentucky. I was kind of used to not having necessarily like a group of individuals who practiced the same as myself. But I was really nervous coming in that I wouldn't have the adequate amount of knowledge or preparation of people who had maybe gone to Sunday schools or, their religious teachings. And I would be behind being like, oh my gosh, what's the story of this? I don't even know. And so for me, being a part of student life, engaging with my fellow cohort members, engaging with faculty, even just, getting on virtual Zoom calls to play Pictionary or Monopoly or whatever, really allowed me to have a sense of comfort with my cohort. There were questions that I think on the first day I would have been really nervous to ask. But getting closer to them has honestly prepared me, I think, for a vocational discernment, in the sense that there are going to be tough conversations any politician, any public service kind of person is going to have. And there are a lot of things that I have to admit I don't know enough about. I need to learn. And that's when I go to people like Lindsey and Ristina and say, I have no idea. I think I just said the wrong thing. I think I just wrote what do I do? That guidance and that vulnerability, I think, is something that I didn't have before coming into VDS, and vulnerability in the best way, right? Like, I think there's a level of arrogance that you're like, oh, I'm at this hotshot school and I know everything and I'm like this cool person. But it takes, I think, a level of, I would even say like divinity almost, at an expense of being cheesy, to just say like, I'm here to learn, like I don't know everything. And so for me, that humility, are you humble if you're calling yourself humble? Like it's kind of the cheesy thing, but I think that was a big thing for me. It's like, I kind of psyched myself out in the beginning thinking I was so different or couldn't really mesh or was going to stand out. And there are definitely ways that I do, but I think it's really awesome to be in a space that is as curious about you as you are it. So it's really nice in that sense.
Iman, you're so kind. I'm like, you don't ask us anything. we don't know. We also don't know. We just make it up as we go.
We're making it up.
To work things out. There is a question in the chat that I wanted to pass on to all of you, for those of you who currently live in Nashville. How did you handle finding housing, and what kind of support can you get from a cohort setting?
I'm going to be listening to this too, because I need to know.
Ooh, that's a good question. So housing, I moved from Atlanta. And so when I got accepted to VDS, I just came down for a weekend with my best friend, and we just had a list of apartments, and I just went through and looked at all of them. Again, we recognize that I'm a little bit older, and so I have different living standards than like folks straight out of undergrad or something like that. I've had my own apartment before. I knew I wanted specific things. So I really just went through and looked at a whole bunch of places. I knew I wasn't going to have a roommate. And so it came down to, what can I afford on this grad school budget? And we crunched the numbers and figured out what was going to work. So that's really how I found housing. I know folks have all kinds of ways of finding things, and Lindsey, you could probably speak to that more than I could.
Yeah, so I've lived here for 5 years, and I've lived in 4 different places. I love moving. I was a military kid growing up, and so I'm like now used to being somewhere for long periods of time. So when I realized I was going to be in Nashville for a while, I like get anxious when I live in a place for more than a year. But I lived by myself in 2 different apartments my first couple years here, and learned that I couldn't afford that lifestyle because Nashville, I'm not going to lie to you, is an expensive city. It just is. The housing costs have gone up every year since I've lived here. And that's not okay. It's also inequitable for a lot of folks who've lived here for generations. And I could talk about that for a long time. But at the end of the day, finding housing for me was about being as close to Vanderbilt as I could be to have a decent commute that didn't involve getting on the highway. Because I grew up in DC for high school, and driving on the highway is my least favorite thing because I hate traffic. And so I wanted to be close to Vanderbilt, and I wanted roommates. And living where I live now, which is a little bit south of Lipscomb, which is close to where I work and also close to school, happened to be a thing I just found on Zillow. It was my last year teaching. I was looking for places to move, and I had a couple roommates already. And we just happened to find the perfect place. I have 2 different roommates now than I did last year. And those 2 roommates, one of them is from the Nashville housing page on Facebook, which I highly recommend. There's one called Nashville Housing. There's one called Nashville Roommates. They're both great. And the other roommate was actually from the Vanderbilt Divinity School Facebook page. I posted pictures of my house and my giant dog, and I said, please come live with us if you would like to. And one of the first year cohort members messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, I'm moving from California. I'd love to move in. And so he is one of my roommates, and then we have another roommate as well, and lots of animals. We have currently 1 dog and 1 cat, soon to be 2 dogs and a cat. So it's doable, but it can be a little bit of an adventure to find housing for sure.
It is an adventure, and rent is expensive. I used to say that I couldn't pay more as a grad student than I did as a full-time working person. That's funny. That was wishful thinking. What was the question about the cohorts?
The question about the cohorts was, what kind of support do you get from your colleagues?
Wow. I never knew that. How many people were in our incoming class? 80 people. I didn't know I could have 80 new best friends. It definitely, like, first day, we had a Facebook page. I'm pretty sure there were group me's going around. Everyone was exchanging numbers. And so this group was support for everything from academic assistance. We always had study guides. We had group study guides. A couple of people would put it together. We would circulate it around. That's the beauty of Divinity School. And I say this all the time, that it's probably the one place that it's not competitive. Everyone is here to support you. Everyone wants you to be your best self. So whatever it is that you need from other people, they're willing to do it. It's not like you're competing to go to med school or trying to get into the best law firm. Like, there are so many jobs and so many paths you could take in Divinity School. And no 2 people are going to be the same, and no 2 people are looking to do the same thing. So there is no competition whatsoever. And so it has been nothing but academic support, and even just like social support. If someone is going through something, if folks are, we had a couple of folks have surgeries that we created meal trains for. We've raised money. We have just, if you needed groceries, if you needed anything, and if you just needed someone to hang out with, we were always available for that. If you just wanted someone to come hang out with you at the library, if you just needed someone to go to a doctor's appointment with you, we really have run the gamut. We have done it all. I've done more in the past 2 years than I probably have in 10. And it has really just brought me so much joy. And I know these friendships will last a lifetime, and we'll be able to call on each other when we get to the places we're going, and we can speak on panels like this. We can reminisce. We can go to karaoke. We could do all kinds of things. And that is what I am grateful for.
I will also add to this that, I think there was a word that Ristina used earlier, food buddy. I haven't heard that before, but for anyone watching who's coming to VDS next year, you got a food buddy right here. I'm calling dibs. I haven't met you yet, but you are welcome to hit me up anytime. I don't care if I'm going to have 3 lunches. I'm happy to do it. I love that. That's the next position in SGA I'm running for, people. I've claimed it. I'll also mention this, that, we have a really, really cool system of, I think actually Ristina said it really well, that it's not a space where, you don't want the person sitting in the seat next to you to do as well as you. I think consistently, it's like this domino train kind of like, oh my gosh, we all got 100 on this exam and we're genuinely excited, right? Or, oh my gosh, we're so nervous about this paper and we're all nervous and we're going to figure out and we're going to make group study guides and we're going to have sessions where we jump on Zoom or in normal circumstances would head to a library or something, I'm assuming, you know? There is so much potential for people to want to come together. Think about the space that you're in. Think about the vocations that a lot of these individuals want. It's not very, I'm in my own space, right? These are people who want to bring people together. And imagine a group of 80 of those kinds of people now as your classmates and cohort members. Ristina really did say it best. You find 80 best friends. That's plain and simple, really how it is. People are rooting for you. People are excited. On a bit of a somber note, you know, in my first finals week, my entire family got COVID. My father was in the ICU. I was freaking out about how to, you know, do finals. In my stubbornness too, I was like, I'm not asking for an extension. It's my first year. How's that going to look? And Ristina, I keep bringing her up, but seriously, y'all, she's amazing. She was like, let me know if you want me to email someone for you. Like, I cannot tell you like how much that meant to me, because I was at a point where I was so tired. I was worried about a million other things. And for this person who is definitely in her own finals week as well, is willing to do that for me was so amazing. There are really, really good people, really, really good friends. And I encourage you that if you're going to, you know, have these good friends, just don't forget to be a good friend, because that's what keeps this circle so special, is that we all kind of play our role.
Thank you. The next question I have, I'm actually going to combine it with a question that came in from the YouTube chat. So I was going to ask you, what words of advice would you have for prospective students? And in those words of advice, I'm wondering if you could talk about how someone comes into this group of folks that is so close and joins the community as a new student.
Yeah, I can start with this one. From my own experience, the most helpful thing coming into VDS was just keep asking questions. Like, if there is anything that is even remotely unclear, anything that like you're interested in, but you're not sure if you do it, like there is someone who has the answer to that question somewhere, and someone you ask will be able to direct you toward them. That has very much been my experience navigating everything from when I first came in to VDS. I was an MTS student, and I decided halfway through my first semester I wanted to be MDiv. And so I just walked into the admissions office and was like, what do I do? And I was pointed in the right direction. Or navigating medical things. I was just emailing deans, like, which dean do I talk to about this? And there's always going to be someone there who is going to be able to guide you. And there's such a like non-anxious, non-judgmental presence about everyone at the Div school that makes it so that every single person you interact with should and does, in my experience, feel very approachable. And so that's my biggest piece of advice, is just keep being curious, keep asking questions. And then when it comes to like moving into this space where people all already know each other, I think just being genuinely yourself. I know that like sounds kind of cheesy, but as Iman and Ristina touched on, it's such a non-competitive space that no one is going to like harshly respond to you for being passionate about the things that you're passionate about, right? Or being or like having a personality trait that is your personality trait. Like that just, it is who you are. And that those things might change, and you might learn and grow and be uncomfortable a lot of the time at VDS. I know our cohort has definitely had our fair share of uncomfortable experiences with each other. But at the end of the day, it's pushed us to know each other more vulnerably and love each other more deeply. And so the best thing that I can say is that whoever you are is enough. And just being that person in the context of the rest of us who are also enough is going to serve you well.
Yeah, and I'll add this, that, you know, as someone who was that newbie kind of at the beginning of this year, I wasn't met with a single door closed. If anything, I feel like they built houses and opened doors for me, you know? It was a space that, like, if this was a group of friends, I feel like the motto was just like, let's make more friends in all of these spaces, whether it's communicating with faculty, like I wish that, you know, I've grown up always trying to be teacher's pet. Like, I want to be the favorite in my classrooms. I think that's impossible to do at VDS because they genuinely care so much about every single student, and they know everything about us. Like, people don't just communicate with Dean Heifetz when it's like, hey, having a crisis with school, what do I do? Like, you can talk to her about her pets. You can talk to her about her favorite, you know, soups or books. She's so cool like that. You know what I mean? And there's no faculty member that I've met that isn't open to also just being human in this time. You know what I mean? And I'll also say this for anyone who is a bit hesitant about, you know, having that sense of community. There's 2 bits of advice that I would give you. One, remember, you're coming in with a new cohort. A lot of these people aren't going to know anyone either. This is a good time to be that connector, be that bridge builder of, you know, if you get into a breakout group during orientation and no one wants to talk, ask somebody what their favorite soup is. I don't know, I'm into soup right now, so I keep bringing it up. Or like, what's your favorite Trader Joe's item? Or are you a Packers fan? Like, go Pack Go. But like, you know, these are the kinds of things that you might be that little match that kind of lights that fire, but the fireworks will go off when you guys start to connect, and that's really special. And if in the process of all of this, you still find yourself a little bit lost, you have a whole cabinet of friends at SGA. So never, ever, ever feel hesitant to come knock on our door, knock on our virtual door. You already have a food buddy. That's one friend already, you know? It's really, it's really, really easy to make friends at VDS. And I'll say this too, while we are not, you know, competitive necessarily with each other, we all really recognize what it means to be a Vanderbilt Divinity School student. You come in and you're immediately proud. You're proud of your faculty, you're proud of yourself for getting here, and you're really proud of the difference that you're going to make. And so it's vital that when you come in, sometimes that's the connector for the people in class. That's what you all have in common. Just the pure bliss of being in a space that is so accepting, that is so forward thinking. A place that really feels like home. And, you know, home is where family is. And like, I'm friends with most of my family, so you will make friends here. Do not worry.
Listen, I just want to be everywhere Iman is. It just brings me so much joy. So for my word of advice for incoming students is that coming to Divinity School, unlike probably any other master's program, graduate program you could do, it's a full body experience. It is a mental experience. It's a mental experience. It is you're wrestling with your spirit. You're wrestling with your physical being, like things you really thought that you knew that you knew that you knew. You'll know. And so you have to be so kind to yourself and know that you might be used to making straight A's, and that is beautiful. And you can come here and do that, but also know that it's okay to like get a B. It's okay to take a breath because you are trying to figure out who you are in this space. So be super, super kind to yourself. Be super kind to the folks around you. Worlds are falling apart and being rebuilt. And so we just have to extend so much graciousness, so much kindness, and so much patience for ourselves and those around us. Rest, the best advice I got when coming to Divinity School is make sure you have a sleep schedule. Make sure that you are getting all the downtime you can possibly find because you're going to be exhausted. That first year, every day I was like, what is happening? It is like drinking from a fire hose. So be kind, rest. And for folks that are coming in, if a cohort has already started, we had a couple of folks in our cohort that were second years as we were first years. I say just find your people. Just be, as I always say, be down to clown. And just to see what other people are doing. Know that there's always someone else interested in something that you want to do. So you can find your people quite easily. Like Iman said, you already have a cabinet full of people that are ready to welcome you. I love new people, so feel free to email me. We can hop on a Zoom call. I can send you a care package. whatever you want. We really, really love people. And if you're going to come in as a new student to a program, like I think Divinity is the best program because we're always trying to build community, and we're always trying to find other people to love on and to celebrate. And I also want to give a special shout out to faculty. Like Iman said, they are just truly the best. They care about you as a whole person, not just about how you're doing in class, but what are your hopes and dreams? I'm looking at PhD programs next, and I have had probably 4 or 5 conversations with different faculty to talk about that. And they're so invested in it. They're like, tell me what you need. Here are some great ideas. And I don't know that you would be able to find that anyplace else. They really want you to succeed. We all want you to succeed. So whatever we can do to make sure that is happening, whether it is you need some study guides, whether it is you need a hot meal, whether it is you need someone to escort you to a doctor's appointment, whatever it is, the folks at the Divinity School are ready and willing to jump in.
Thank you all. I want to thank all of you for joining us on YouTube, and a special thank you to our panelists. You all are awesome. And if you are curious about VDS, you can always learn more at divinity.vanderbilt.edu. You can set up virtual visits and learn more about upcoming webinars. And next week at 7 p.m. Central on March 2nd, if you'd like to learn more about how Divinity School helps you discern your vocation, you can join us. Same place, same time. Thanks everyone for coming.